Good morning, everybody. I am very glad to introduce this webinar that is part of the Diplomacy Festival. The general subject of this festival is managing transformation in a no-compass world. And it's true that with this crisis, we are in an uncharted territory, and it's very difficult to find the right direction. I am Donato Speroni. I am a member of the Italian Alliance for the Sustainable Development, Alleanza Italiana per lo Sviluppo Sostenibile. And the specific topic of discussion for us this morning is the European Green Deal, sustainability and innovation. I want to remind you that the European Green Deal was launched by the new president of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, on July 16 of last year, presenting her political guidelines for 5 years, under the title, A Union That Strives for More, My Agenda for Europe. I just want to quote one sentence from that speech. Europe must lead the transition to a healthy planet and a new digital world. But it can only do so by bringing people together and upgrading our unique social market economy to fit today's new ambitions. And she stated 6 headline ambitions: a European Green Deal, an economy that works for people, a Europe fit for the digital age, protecting our European way of life, a stronger Europe in the world, and a new push for European democracy. Notice that the European Green Deal is the first of these ambitions. This policy, this program, is a big change from the other commission, the one that had Mr. Juncker as president, because Mrs. von der Leyen put the Agenda 2030 and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals approved by all the countries of the world in 2015 as a compass for the whole activities of the Commission. Yes, maybe it's a compass word, but maybe some kind of a compass, we have it. Each commissioner is in charge of some goals. When Mr. Giovannini, that is leading ASVIS, our alliance, asked Juncker to put the agenda, to put the programs of the Commission in the framework of the Agenda 2030, Mr. Juncker said that this was impossible. So the program of Mrs. von der Leyen is radically different from the other commission. Of course, the crisis because of the pandemic changed the picture, and is accelerating change, even with terrible problems for health and economy. I just want to quote first, the fact that we are funding, Europe is funding important programs with Next Generation EU. That is a very large investment in recovery and resilience played on innovation. Second, the fact that for the first time we'll have an emission of European green bonds, and this is a very big step in European integration. Last but not least, the fact that we will have important implications for the national states, because the recovery and resilience national plans are a big stimulus for stepping up innovation. So all this is a big change in Europe and also in our country. And we think that Europe is now the point of reference for the politics, the programs of change for all of us. I want to mention that ASVIS produced a booklet in Italian that is called Dal Green Deal al Next Generation EU that you can download from our website, and which summarizes all the steps of the European policy on this field from December 2019, when Ursula took office, till today. Okay, now let's focus on the European Green Deal, starting from this, from the message by the Commissioner Virginijus Sinkevičius, who is Commissioner for Environment, Oceans and Fisheries. But before starting the video, I want to add that I discovered that his responsibilities are much larger than what might seem from the title of his tasks, because he is supposed to present next year a new biodiversity strategy for 2030. He is delivering the zero pollution plans. He has to work on the circular economy and deliver the circular economy action plan, and has to promote plastic-free oceans and proper implementation of legislation on plastics, particularly on microplastics. So you see that his tasks are very big. Please, let's see the video. If we have problems, we can go on with the discussion and then see the
Yes, I'm sorry. There are some troubles with the video. Just a few seconds and it will start. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. It happens when we work online. Actually, we were supposed to have this meeting in presence, at least for some of us, but then the rules in Italy changed because of the situation, and so we had to do everything online.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear organizers, thank you for this invitation to a very timely debate. I hope all is well in Rome. Normally, I would have visited Rome in person by now, but these are not business as usual times. I hope you are safe and making the best of these difficult circumstances. I've been asked to say a few words about sustainability and innovation in the context of the Green Deal. I'm very happy to do that, as they really are the heart of the deal. And it is close to my heart as well. We adopted the European Green Deal before COVID-19, and that has turned out to be very fortunate. Unfortunately, it can't solve the immediate public health crisis, but it contains most of the elements we need to get out of many other parts of this crisis. I say that because we plan to build a more sustainable economy, smarter, more resilient, and more resistant to future shocks, precisely what we need after the pandemic. It's all about systemic thinking, a plan to tackle climate change, biodiversity loss, unsustainable resource use, and pollution. And it is about doing it at the same time with a set of initiatives that make each other stronger while bringing growth and jobs. Many of these initiatives are now in place. We now have a new climate law to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, a circular economy action plan with circular economy at the heart of the EU recovery plan and a new strategy for farming and food. And more will be coming very soon, with a chemical strategy for sustainability due to be adopted tomorrow as the first step in a zero pollution action plan to be published next year. When you put them together, you see a Europe that aims to lead by example, a Europe that is investing in a climate neutral, resource efficient, circular economy to deliver a union that is cleaner, fairer, and more socially inclusive. If you want to build resilience, it is hard to do better than investing in green. It's the best recipe for a stronger society. With a circular economy, you protect yourself against future resource shocks. When you protect nature, you also clean your air and protecting your waters. When you decarbonize, you're building sustainability into your energy system. This is the message from the top of the Commission, as we heard from the President von der Leyen in her State of the Union speech. It is why Europe is determined to go carbon neutral by 2050. She made clear that 37% of recovery expenditure would go to European Green Deal objectives, and that 30% of the next generation EU will be raised through green bonds. Once adopted, most of the new investments will run through the Recovery and Resilience Facility. In their national recovery and resilience plans, member states will lay out their plans in line with the Europe's green recovery objectives. It is already reassuring to see member states doing their part. Italy is a strong supporter of the European Green Deal, with complementary measures in its own national Green Deal. When it comes to industrial innovation, I am sure you have all noticed a change. Doing business today involves a lot more collaboration than it used to. Not just inside companies, but within industries. We live in a time where companies are more obviously part of a broader ecosystem than ever before. The Commission has noted this change, and we are doing all we can to help businesses adapt. Our new industrial strategy and our SME strategy are an attempt to engage all stakeholders and build up competitiveness, helping them to be part of the change. The aim is to create ecosystems of excellence where all the players can find their place. Whether you are a large industrial group, an SME, or a research center, it is there with a framework to address the twin challenges of sustainability and digitalization, with a focus on circular economy in a wide range of sectors. One of the new elements is the creation of sustainability advisors inside the Enterprise Europe network. They are there to help making products and production processes more sustainable. Italy is actually doing very well with eco-innovation, with a major push to develop and implement policies dedicated to green, tech, and circular economy. In Italy, the ambition is there, as it is in many parts of Europe. But if we really want to make the circular economy a reality and deliver a more sustainable society, then we need to step up research and innovation. They will be crucial to the green and digital transitions that Europe needs. I think we have what it takes. The EU is a top player in scientific production and excellence. We're 16% of the world economy, but we account for 25% of top-cited scientific publications on climate and 27% on the bioeconomy. The figures are similar when it comes to patent applications in these areas. The Green Deal will help us maintain that leadership and to turn research into marketable solutions. The focus will be on dissemination, uptake, and rapid scalability. That way, we speed the pace of change. Horizon 2020 and the Future Horizon Europe program play a crucial role in this transformation. 1 month ago, on 17th of September, the Commission launched the last and the biggest Horizon 2020 European Green Deal call. It's a €1 billion call for research and innovation projects that respond to climate crisis and help protect Europe's unique ecosystems and biodiversity. It is one more important element in our efforts to spur Europe's recovery, turning green challenges into innovation opportunities. It's open for registration until next year, and I very much hope that at least some of you can all apply. Innovation is real-world magic, producing an unexpected change, turning us towards a brighter future. We really need that magic now. Our future resilience will depend on the investments we make today. I really hope that you can take part in that, because we need your commitment, your engagement, and your determination. They are vital ingredients for a better future, a healthier planet, and healthier citizens. I hope you can help us deliver that. Thank you.
The commissioner was very clear. I just want to underline a few points. The first one is the systemic approach. The fact that policies for adaptation and against mitigation, the biodiversity actions, the fight against pollution, the fight against plastic dissemination, and for circular economy are all connected, all part of the European Green Deal. And we cannot think to take one of these targets without considering the others. The second is that the 37%, we know it, but sometimes our politicians tend to forget it. 37% of the next generation EU must be used for the Green Deal objectives, for the European Green Deal objectives. And third, the importance of pushing innovation, even for the small and medium enterprises, because, as he said, our future resilience depends on innovation. Okay, now is the time to give, to start the discussion with the other participants. I present them. Carlo Corazza, who is head of the Italian office at European Parliament. Daria Ciriaci, head of European Affairs for Cassa Depositi e Prestiti. Valeria Palmisano, head of Institutional Affairs with United Europe for EDISON. Slobodan Šešum, Economic Counselor for the Embassy of Republic of Slovenia. And Andrea Renda, Senior Research Fellow in the Center for European Policy Studies in Brussels. Okay, we agreed that the first round of speeches will be around 7 minutes each. And please, Mr. Corazza, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, the Prezio della Diplomazia, for inviting me. As the European Commissioner already stressed, we are talking about a comprehensive strategy, not just a strategy to fight climate change, which is one of our main problems, at least for our citizens, after the COVID is the main problem, but also to restore growth after this crisis and to strengthen our competitiveness. So, in other terms, we are also talking about an industrial policy strategy. And this industrial policy has 5 pillars, more or less. As President van der Leyen stressed in her speech on the State of the Union, the 16th of September, we have it all. We have targets, we have the money to invest, public and private. We have a legislative framework, we have an internal market, and we have diplomacy for the Green Deal. It is very important to stress that on the target, the European Parliament is even more ambitious than the European Commission. In her speech, Ursula von der Leyen indicated a target of 55% cutting of emission by 2030, and of course, carbon neutrality by 2050. The European Parliament, in the plenary of October, indicated a more ambitious target, 60% of cut by 2030. In any case, if you want to reach carbon neutrality by 2050, we need to strongly accelerate the rhythm of cut of CO2 emission, because at present, with the present rate, we will only cut by 60% our emission by 2050. And we all know that this is not enough. But to cut emission, we need money. The European Commission estimated that we need more or less 260 billion per year in a constant, but from now to 2050 to reach this goal. This is why it's very important that in the strategy to recover from the COVID crisis, we put as a priority the Green Deal. As it already stressed, the Next Generation EU and the Recovery and Resilience Facility will be for 37% dedicated to fight against climate change and sustainability. For the Parliament, at least 25% of the new budgets, which we hope will be approved by the end of this year, will be dedicated to sustainability and fight against climate change. 1/3 of the money for research and innovation, Horizon Europe. 1/3 of EU Invest, 40% of the money for agriculture, 30% of the money for fishery. So we are really talking about a huge amount of money, which will invest in all the sector, in the industrial sector, in agricultural sector, on transportation, building renovation, energy production, digital, of course, innovation. Then we have to review our regulatory framework. In June 2021, the Commission will propose the revision of several very important pieces of legislation, including European Trading System, Renewable Directive, Energy Efficiency Directive, taxation on energy, and the performance in terms of emission of CO2 of trucks and cars, just to quote the most important one. Then we have to complete the internal market for energy. And for this, we need to invest more money on infrastructure, on smart grid, on interconnection, to harmonize our standard and to have a real internal market with carbon, with the technological neutrality. And then final pillar, the external dimension. Is it obvious that climate change is not just a European problem, it's a global problem? So from one side, the European Union should take the leadership as it is doing at the moment, also the technological leadership. The results have to find a stronger way to push the other country, including US and their share of the responsibility. We will try to strengthen our Green Deal diplomacy, not trade policy. By the way, all the new trade agreement will include the clause with the obligation to respect the Paris Agreement, but also with a compensation of the carbon quantity included in some goods, for instance, on steel, imported from third country. And this compensation will be a new own resource, and which will fund a green bond and the Next Generation EU. And we also have to help, of course, with our policy for development and our neighboring policy, our closest partner, the African country, the Balkans, to go in the right direction. So this is a very clear strategy with a very clear direction, with very clear means. The Parliament will always be at the forefront of this strategy and will always try to push for more ambitious action. Thank you very much.
Reminded us of the important programs that the Union will have to face from next year. And now I ask Mrs. Daria Ciriaci, Head of European Affairs for Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, to take part in our discussion.
Thank you, Donato, and good morning to everybody. First of all, let me thank the organizer of Festival della Diplomazia for the kind invitation. It's an honor for me to speak in this panel about this key topic on behalf of Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, that is the Italian national promotional institutions. Needless to say, since its inception, the EU Green Deal was conceived as a transformative agenda, as our commissioner has just stressed. However, we could not have imagined that after a few months, this flagship initiative would have become even more central, representing now what we can redefine a roadmap to drive Europe out of a first-time crisis. Obviously, we need to find the right balance between such a strategic vision of a greener EU economy and the current financial needs of firms and families. That is why, as potential and I hope real implementing partners of InvestEU, we really welcome the climate target of 30%, and of course the climate targets also of the recovery package. But at the same time, it would be necessary that these targets will be easily to assess to avoid too complex approval process that could delay the execution and the impact on the territory of this fundamental EU program. Crisis can be at the same time a challenge to overcome and an opportunity to catch. And in this case, we have the opportunity, thanks to this very broad policy plan of the Commission and through a massive mobilization of European public funds. And I believe by making planning our keyword, to capitalize on it and ensure a green European recovery. Though I always prefer speaking about a sustainable recovery, that is a broader concept. I also believe that planning a green and sustainable recovery should hinge on three key aspects. First of all, focus on key technologies, encompassing also those that can accelerate the pace of change. Let's imagine about digital technologies. The adoption of a systemic approach, again, as was stressed before, being the green recovery, a very broad concept encompassing and involving different sectors, we also need to leverage on entities which has a cross-sector and cross-institutional mindset. And finally, we need to make the most of the use of modern and efficient financial instruments that allow us to do more with less resources. So let me just discuss briefly these 3 points more in detail. When we speak about focus on key technologies, it means, or I mean, that we should focus not only on sustainable technologies stricto sensu, but also on enablers, such as digitalization, because this allows us to accelerate the pace of the green recovery. And this is correctly recognized as the commissioner was stressing in the regulation, for instance, of the Recovery and Resilience Facility, where we have not only a target in terms of climate expenses, but also for digital expenses. And this is important because digital technologies help other sectors to innovate and provide the sustainable services they need. Let's think about smart mobility, smart grids, and innovative energy-saving technologies, and so on. But it is also self-evident that the potential of digitalization as a facilitator of a sustainable economy remains largely unlocked, mainly due to a persistent lack of digital infrastructure. We need also to think about the digital divide that characterize Italy, no? Or even the core of a city and its in its periphery, as the COVID crisis and its impact as shown to us. Second aspect is ensuring a systemic approach. Okay, the green transition is a complex and economy-wide transformative process where environmental, social, economic considerations are interlinked and involve different sectors and players. This characteristic needs to be embedded in our approach, meaning that only if we are able to leverage on entities which are able to connect multiple and interdependent dots, we will be able to properly advance our effort. And let me say that I believe that in these CDPs already an example, as we are in the position of thinking systematically and addressing the local challenges of a green transition. And an example of this systemic approach is applied, for instance, in cities for which we have developed overarching city plans comprising structure and interrelated intervention made of urban regeneration, mobility, energy efficiency, and, for instance, integrated waste management programs. Third aspect, as a final requirement for a successful green economy, we need to crowd in private and public investment using modern and efficient financial instruments. In this regard, we have already a very good examples that work very well in Italy, and I'm referring to the Juncker plan, the European Investment Program, which was quite a success, and in which CDP also had played and continue to play a key role. So just to give some numbers, Italy has benefited of around 12-13 billion of loans. We should mobilize other 80 billion in additional investment. So with a very strong leverage effort that allows us to make the most of limited resources. And I believe for the future, building on this success, the InvestEU fund will continue mobilizing public and private investments which are needed to address the still sizable investment gap in Europe, and InvestEU will contribute substantially to the EU Green Deal. And again, as experienced executors of EU guarantees, CDP is ready to make the most of those resources available by direct access. But in this respect, also let me say that we hope that EU institution will agree on an adequate size of the guarantee and ensure the start of the program at the soonest, because this is needed to support MPBIs, so the Cassa of all Europe, to contribute to the recovery of the European economy. Eventually, ensuring also a full complementarity of InvestEU and other EU funds. Let's imagine the Recovery and Resilience funds, and fostering the blending of private and public resources, as done, for instance, in the case of the CEF Transport Blending Facility. We will be able to use these funds in the most efficient way that is possible. So this is for me the future. So for instance, also replicating these facilities, so the CEF blending facility in other sectors than transport could be extremely useful. So we really look forward to have our role in the use of these resources and combining them with our finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Daria. Well, I sure think that key technologies, systemic approach, and efficient financial instruments are essential for what we want to build. Now I give the floor to Ms. Virginia Palmisano, Head of Institutional Affairs with Europe for EDISON. Please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Speroni, and good morning to everyone. Again, it is really a privilege to take part to this excellent panel today, and on such an important topic. I joined Daria in thanking the organizers of the festival. It's really been days of interesting and inspiring discussions, and this festival could not come at a better time because the scale and the nature of the challenges that we are confronted with call for dialogue and exchange of views more than ever. Just to introduce myself briefly, I'm Valeria Palmisano, and I'm in charge for institutional relations with the European Union here in Brussels. On behalf of EDISON, a lot of you probably know already the company. It's a leading and historical energy player of Italy. I like to use the word historical here because it's I believe one of the main distinctive traits that the company has in the energy landscape of Italy and Europe as well, and the trait is longevity. I always like to stress this whenever I have the chance to, because EDISON has been active for more than 135 years now. This helps us putting things in perspective compared to where we are when dealing with electricity, also from a technological point of view. And at the time, literally, the company was a protagonist of the very beginning of ready-to-use electrons at the end of the 19th century. And he had this genuine pioneering spirit that keeps inspiring today the industrial strategy. So if I think of innovation, which is one of the key words for our discussion today, I believe this is one of the secrets of this kind of longevity, because the company has been really able to reinvent itself over time without losing its identity and its values, and always seeking for a better version of itself. And as an attitude, I believe this is something really worth preserving. Just few figures and numbers about EDISON, about where we are today. The company is active in power generation. The mix is sustainable, it's diversified, it includes renewable sources and natural gas. We do have a growing space for energy efficiency, energy services, environmental services that look at the industry. Here we have a very long tradition with industrial partnerships and lately with the public administration, and with a big focus on buildings and including the healthcare. We have an outreach of 1.6 million final customers. And today, EDISON is also a main importer of natural gas to Italy, covering sub 20% of the country's needs. There again, the portfolio, it's broad, it's diversified. It looks at several suppliers, and for power generation, we're third for installed capacity. There, the ambition and our commitment is to stick with the top-ranked technologies. We're doing this for renewables and for thermal generation. There we have lately Class H combined cycle gas turbines that give us the highest, and to Italy, the highest efficiency rate for Europe so far. So just speaking roughly about technology. So how does a company like EDISON, how does a player like this look at the challenges of the energy transition today? Many has been said already. The framework is quite clear. We are still in the very middle of the pandemic crisis. It's under everybody's watch. And in perspective, tasks are tough because we have to re-engineer our economic models. We have to build literally the energy system of the future. And here it's no longer just about providing the necessary amount of energy to fuel whatever is our ambition, but it's also about fueling this ambition with energy of a certain quality, with cleaner, more sustainable solutions, and make it accessible and reliable for all, which is not a minor task. So if I'm asked whether we have a compass to navigate such troubled waters, we may say my answer is yes. And the answer is yes, because we have a shared view on the destination, and the Green Deal has been able to frame such a shared view and put it into an ambitious policy agenda. The task for the energy sector and for a company like EDISON, now it's just to turn this agenda and its ambition into projects, into investments and services to the society. On the other hand, if I'm asked whether this will be a task that companies can easily manage to accomplish on their own, then my answer is no, because achieving its magic climate neutrality by 2050 and matching the energy and climate objectives that we have subscribed collectively to 2030, both with the United Nations and at the European level, will require a certain number of enabling conditions that make the industrial and institutional dialogue now more important than ever at national, at European, and at international level. I might like to quote Commissioner Sinkevicius here, because he stressed the crucial point, I believe, one moment ago. He said, our future resilience will depend on the investment we make today. So investments are at the very heart of our engagement, both for the economic recovery and for the energy transformation, but they will need a supportive environment, robust, competitive, transparent markets, solid research and development policies, and none of these are given themselves without dialogue and without mutual understanding. So if I just look at most recent developments in the energy landscape, we saw a massive increase of decentralization patterns for power generation. This was thanks to new technologies, the digital solutions, the emergence of unprecedented features where consumers have become active players. They become producers themselves and participate actively to the system. On the gas market, the LNG market has developed to such a point that today we can truly speak about a global gas market. And then we have, of course, new promising vectors that come to stage, such as hydrogen. What does it mean? It means that the geography of the energy value chains and the strategic interests of governments and region are evolving accordingly within and around Europe. And of course, this leads to a new set of interdependencies that to some extent intertwine with the previous ones and the old ones. And we all agree, I think, that interdependencies need mutual trust. Otherwise, they just come at unaffordable costs for our economies and societies, and we saw this with the disruption of value chains, also due to the corona crisis. And these are all aspects that remain at the very heart of the Green Deal. I might want to say a few words on how the energy sector can help build and reinforce this trust. And I believe there are a few ways. First, but this has been said already, the Green Deal has confirmed its role as a compass also for the economic recovery in Europe, and has remained as a central pillar. The fact that, for instance, 37% of the resources under the Recovery and Resilience Facility will support the green transition, and the fact that 30% of the financial resources under the Next Generation EU will be raised through green bonds is, first of all, an example of daring and forward-looking innovation in the approach. And trust here will be required also on the side of financial markets. So the energy sector can have a role in building this trust by making sure that modernization needs are turned into growth opportunities and investments for the broadest range of energy users. And here I might refer to transport, I might refer to agricultural sector, industries, services, the public administration, you name it. And the more these investments will fit with the new paradigm of sustainability that must include the environmental, the economic, and the social aspects, the easier it will be, I believe, to lay a viable and pragmatic path towards the Green Deal objectives and towards our medium and long-term objectives. And to do this, we can build on the best available technologies that we have, and we can certainly embrace the opportunities of the digital transformation. And here, I believe trust can only lead to mutually reinforcing schemes. Another way that the energy sector can actively contribute to building and reinforcing this trust is by providing opportunities for cooperation in many fields at national, regional, and international level, again, by bringing together institutions, stakeholders, the academia, and citizens. Because around energy projects, we can develop a common vocabulary. We can help identify the most suitable market designs that are fit for the future, and we can innovate also in the approaches from, let's imagine, cross-sectoral regulation to project financing. So if I look at the energy sector, it's true that from the economic performance of countries and regions to the quality of life of every single citizen, the sector bears an enormous responsibility in connecting these many dimensions of the society. So all I can observe is that today we have in the Green Deal a unique compass, and all we have to do is to get to work and start the journey together. Thank you.
Palmisano, I agree that in the energy sector, we know the destination that is carbon neutrality by 2050. We have a compass that is the European Green Deal, but certainly we have to step up change. And we'll talk about this in the second round of our discussion. Okay, now it's time to give the floor to the economic counselor of the Embassy of Republic of Slovenia, Slobodan Šešum. I hope I pronounced well your name. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Donato Speroni. Let me thank the organizers, distinguished speakers, and it's always very hard to speak after such distinguished speakers. Let me say also at the very beginning, as you all mentioned, European Green Deal is also for us, sure, as our strategy for sustainable growth and needed investments for recovery of our economies. So the recovery must focus on low carbon and circular investments, as well as digitalization, as you all mentioned. We all agree that digitalization is transforming our business models and consumption patterns, management of waste and pollution, and other sectors. But among many policies which are important for shaping the digitalization to be more compatible with the environment, I would like to highlight circular economy, where digital solutions are key in general and especially essential for reducing barriers and enable the traceability of products, materials, and across supply chains. In addition, digitalization is essential for different stakeholders to have information they need for decisions like to reuse, repair, recycle of products. This will be also important for improving and stimulating environmentally friendly consumer behavior. So we will have to focus on finding synergies, as it has been mentioned by all the speakers before me, between digitalization and environmental concerns, as well as climate change. Digitalization in general offers many new tools such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, enhanced data centers and storages, and such many tools that are in cloud computing. In talking about artificial intelligence, I have to mention that the UNESCO-backed Artificial Intelligence Research Center will be built in Slovenia. Although those digital tools have significant climate environmental impact, and all those roadmaps, strategies, planning, strategic frameworks must work hand in hand. I am sure we all agree on that. We all agree also that we support common goals, but even that will not be enough. For achieving them, should national investments and reforms not be mobilized in the same direction as well? Smaller countries such as Slovenia have very little choice but being open to collaboration in pursuing excellence in research and innovation. For small countries to grow and expand, opening up and internationalizing their research and innovations systems instrumentally, but one could say existentially important on the long run for small countries. Besides being small, Slovenia has other its own limitations. One of them is that 38% of Slovenian territory is under Natura 2000 protection. 66% of Slovenian territory is covered by forest. I mentioned our shortcomings, but on the other hand, Slovenia is rich in resources for renewable energy and consequently has great potential for transition to green economy. Slovenia has already a well-developed system of investment tax relief and research and development tax incentives, as well as highly skilled labor force offering valuable incentives and creating a favorable business environment for potential investors in innovations. Now let me tell you just a few sentences what are we already doing in Slovenia. We have established EcoFund, and its main purpose is to promote development in the field of environmental protection. In comparison with commercial banks, EcoFund's principal advantages in the market for environmental financings are that it provides soft loans at lower interest rates than prevailing commercial banks' rates. Recent evaluations of the effective interest rates of EcoFund loans on the one hand and those of commercial banks on the other have shown that a total of 15% of the cost of an investment can be saved when opting for EcoFund loans. Our development bank is promoting green bonds. At the proposal of the Ministry of Economy, the Manager Association prepared an action plan for higher productivity growth. Slovenia Business Development Agency established an Academy for Sustainable Transformation in order to help the industries to transform. With the programs of Chamber of Commerce, we are trying to increase the sustainable transformation in order to achieve the low carbon supply chain. And NGOs in Slovenia are also very active and pushing very much on all of these fields. They are very active in the so-called marketing and awareness, since there are many companies that still aren't eager to change their way of thinking, but the public is very much in favor of the Green Deal. Ladies and gentlemen, since I am a Slovenian diplomat currently in Rome, let me tell you just a few words regarding the relatively new phenomenon, also in the academia, and what we are facing now during the pandemic more than ever. It's science diplomacy, which incorporates explicit attempts to interconnect the fields of science, politics, and economics. There is no more international affairs without science and technology, and vice versa. There are no science and technology without internationality. We are pushing very hard with Italian partners on the innovations, working with scientists and companies with high added value. Let me tell you just a few examples. We work very hard with ENEA. Last year, we had a very fruitful conference, Italy and Slovenia Partnership in Investment and Innovation, where the accent was on common project regarding circular economy, factories of the future, smart cities and communities. We had also a presentation of good practices of Slovenian investments in Italy and Italian in Slovenia, focused not on quantity but on quality. We were also present at the event of think tank of Nodo di Gordio, La politica estera come investimento per il futuro, where we were analyzing how diplomacy and science can be a huge leverage for mutual benefits. We were planning an event in Bologna regarding artificial intelligence, but then because of the pandemic, we postponed the event. Next week, we have an event which will be also online with friends from Neutech Park in Bolzano, focusing on smart buildings and homes with a wood chain and new green technologies. We are constantly in contact with friends of Consiglio Nazionale delle Ricerche and planning new events. Well, I hope that to see you next time live, and it's nice that we have now this possibility to be online, but I think that it's better to speak by person, and I hope that was short and open for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Šešum. When you said that 68%, if I wrote 66% of your territory is covered by forests, I thought how green is Slovenia and how I appreciated it every time I visited this country. But I liked very much in your speech this concept of science diplomacy. I think that this kind of integration is very important, not only to fight pandemia, but just for the future of all what we have to do about energy, circular economy, and all the programs involved in the Green Deal. Okay, now for the final speech of the first round, it's time for Andrea Renda, Senior Research Fellow for the Center of European Policy Studies in Brussels. Please.
Thank you very much, Donato, and good morning, everybody. I would like to thank all the organizers for having me here. I think it's a very important discussion, obviously, and it's easy to say perfect timing, although I think we are living in a constant series of perfect timings for discussions like this one. There's never an imperfect time for discussing the Green Deal or the Sustainable Development Goal. And what I'd like to offer is possibly a succinct, short, and perhaps the least diplomatic intervention of the morning. Also because I don't have any, I'm an academic, I have no specific, let's say, corporate or institutional affiliations. So I take the liberty to speak freely. I also take the liberty to provoke a little bit Donato, whom I thank for the work that he has done all these years. And my impression, these are not Donato's words, meaning I receive Donato's editorials on a regular basis. I'm very good friends with Enrico Giovannini. I followed all the work that ASVES, which I consider to be a miracle for Italy, have developed over time. But Donato, you and Enrico and all your distinguished colleagues have been preaching for a long time policy coherence, ambition, a systematic approach, with very little results, in my opinion, in terms of concrete policy consequences, in particular in our own home country. And so what I want to say at the very beginning of my intervention is, are we really on a different path today? Or are we back into a reproposition of old terminology with very little instruments, let alone the compass? We need many, many more instruments to navigate properly through the current troubled times. So do we have that? Well, the first thing I want to say about this is, I don't think we have a state of grace to get back to. Even before the pandemic, there was a lot of disappointment with respect to government's inability to convert something that scientific evidence had consecrated into concrete and coherent policy actions. Obviously, as Donato was mentioning before, the transition from the Juncker Commission with the 10 priorities, very narrowly focused, to the von der Leyen Commission has come with a lot of expectations initially. My interpretation is that we do have the Green Deal on the table as a second best solution, but that is obviously my provocation. Meaning I would have loved to have on the table a Sustainable Development Goals, a full-fledged Sustainable Development Goals agenda for Europe. And still the SDGs remain central also in the Green Deal. They obviously are in the process of being mainstreamed in the European semester, which would be extremely important. They still remain the North Star in Europe's external action. And this is also something very important. But we also do have the Green Deal and not a full-fledged 2030 Sustainable Development Goals oriented agenda at the European Union level, because there are some aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals that are, let's say, very hard nuts to crack, if you wish. And I'm thinking about good governance. I'm thinking about the rule of law. I'm thinking about the quality of institutions and many other aspects of social sustainability that are not easy to manage at the European level. And that is the first element that I think will be very important. We can have a Green Deal agenda with the addition of the just transition, but we will give it full meaning if we make it as close as possible to a sustainable development goals agenda. We can pursue environmental sustainability. We can pursue industrial transformation towards specific energy-related goals or climate-related goals. But we need to do this in a harmonious way. And we need to do this in a way that preserves the economic, the social, and environmental sustainability aspects through good governance. One example, I'll just go very quickly, the better regulation agenda of the European Commission. We give ourselves targets for the medium term that are related to sustainability, and in particular, Green Deal related targets. But when we discuss whether a directive or a regulation should be crafted or drafted in a way or another, we still use cost-benefit analysis. We don't use, let's say, a compass, again, that tells us whether one policy option or another gets us closer to the Green Deal goals or the Sustainable Development Goals or not. We use, if you wish, a GDP framework. So we preach very long-term goals, but we practice very inconsistent short-term goals with very inconsistent short-term criteria. That is something that needs to change. Similarly, if the Green Deal, as was mentioned by Ursula von der Leyen several times, is the new growth strategy for the European Union, is the strategy for what we now call competitive sustainability, whatever that means, because I'm happy to have a discussion about that, then all the less than 1% percentage targets for spending the next generation EU funds, especially if they are below 50%, shouldn't be welcome and hailed as a triumph. How can we have one growth strategy, or hopefully a sustainable development strategy, and then commit to spending 30% through green bonds, and orient a relatively small percentage of this towards the Green Deal objectives? I would actually advocate that the majority of the funds that will be spent at any level of government should be brought towards converging towards those goals. And I will make one example, and then I close, because obviously there's much more to be said about it. But one example, and the example that I've been closest to lately, it's the example of digital technology and the twin transition. Think about artificial intelligence. I have just finished my mandate as a member of the high-level expert group on artificial intelligence of the European Commission. When we started, we were told that our role as advisor would be to help the EU advance in terms of competitiveness in artificial intelligence. And I immediately raised my hand and said, I actually don't care about artificial intelligence. I care about artificial intelligence to the extent that artificial intelligence can lead us towards medium-term sustainable development goals. I don't care about AI applications for snapping a better selfie or better recommendations of the next movie to watch. I care about what can AI do for our medium-term goals. So treating technology as a means and not a goal. And that is very important, because when we talk about twin transition, we have to remind ourselves that digital technologies are not always the most sustainable way of solving problems. It depends very much how we use them. I think in the future we will need to make a much more thorough reflection for what concerns, for example, decentralized governance in digital technology, lowering the energy consumption of the data centers, ensuring that we don't use extremely energy-hungry techniques such as deep learning whenever we have topics or domains in which we could solve problems in a different way. And we need to hold the digital platforms and the large tech giants accountable for the consumption of energy of their companies and the companies they mobilize whenever they offer our products through this very, very big platforms that they operate. In other ways, in crafting our policies, in crafting our regulations, in designing our policies, in setting our goals, in walking the talk, and in general, we need to be coherent. And I don't think we're there yet. And I think this is still perhaps a useful time to try and bring us back to a more sustainable chart. But we cannot just, relax and enjoy our resounding words such as Green Deal and other things, because we've been there before. And we want to now really achieve concrete results, transform our economies while we protect them, because the time is also for protection, and make sure that whatever we do is shared with citizens and observable with concrete achievements and concrete results that are properly communicated. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to hear the reactions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to say that I agree with you. I am not optimistic about the situation unless we step up change. As you know, you said you were provoking Enrico Giovannini and me, but you know that in the editorials that I write every week and that are published in our weekly newsletter, I always say that if we don't have a strong support by the public opinion, we will not get important results because we are not on the path to sustainable development. We have a lot to do to be on the path of sustainable development. Okay, this is time for the second round. Each one of you will have 3-4 minutes, and I'll ask a question to each one of you, starting with Mr. Corazza. I am connecting to what was said before by Andrea Renda, and because, well, I've been a journalist for more than 50 years, and I would like to ask difficult questions. My impression is that the situation is not so good for the European programs. We have delays in the Next Generation EU. I hear that maybe the Parliament will not be able to approve the 7-year program before the end of the year, and this would be a big problem. And also that Mrs. van der Leyen has problems with her own party because she is too green. I mean, the situation is not very good. Or am I wrong? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I tend to disagree. I'm quite optimistic. Could you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm quite optimistic because it is true that the Parliament.
I'm sorry to interrupt for a technical issue. I just would like you to would like to remind you that the room will be available until 10:45.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. The Parliament is not blocking the negotiation. The Parliament is doing its job to promote the interests of the citizen and the entrepreneur. And the Parliament strongly believes that we need to be more ambitious on the multi-annual framework, financial framework, including putting more resources to implement the Green Deal. At the same time, the Parliament is doing a very constructive and reasonable proposal. The Parliament is not asking the moon; it's asking for 39 billion, which is more or less the 2% of the money at the moment on the table, which are 1,074 billion. I remember. And I'm optimistic because I think that at the end of the day, we will find an agreement. I don't know if this agreement will be at the end of the year or not, but there will be time in 2020-21 to start to implement Next Generation EU and the budget. And of course, we can do better. Of course, we can put more money. Of course, we can be more ambitious. And the Parliament, as I said, would like the European Union to be even more ambitious. But we are going in the right direction. And if you look at the rest of the world, I think that Europe, the one is the model and is clearly the leader also in political terms.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Corazza. I didn't know that our times were so rigid, so I have to ask you to stay just in 2 minutes in your answers. Then Daria Ciriaci. I want to ask you, do you think that we have a general problem of greenwashing? The financial greenwashing has been cleared, defining a taxonomy. You think that this can be extended?
Thank you for the question. Let's say that the taxonomy itself was conceived as a dynamic tool, meaning that as technology evolves and innovative activities emerge, the taxonomy will be constantly updated and extended to cover such activities. Concurrently, I believe that as the COVID crisis has shown, there can't be a sustainable recovery and growth without social sustainability. So on this, I'm completely aligned with what you said. It is for this reason that in the future the taxonomy might be extended to cover also social objectives such as improving social infrastructure, education, health. And I'm sure that the new EU platform on sustainable finance will play a key role in that. And I'm particularly honored that CDP has been recently welcomed as an observer member in this EU platform. So the answer is yes.
Thank you.
For me.
Mrs. Palmisano, to reach the goal of cutting energy emission, the emissions, carbon emissions by 55-60% by 2030, how much green energy we have to put down in Italy? I mean, I heard from an assessor in Lombardy that they were calculating 3,000 soccer fields of new solar panels just for Lombardy.
Well, it's an interesting question, because now around the figures of the new objective to 2030, so be it 50, 55 or 60, we will know this in December. There is, of course, connected the question about the level of ambition of the objective for renewable energy. And we know that there are parameters that help us link the marginal abatement CO2 that we can achieve with renewable energy. Now, the Commission has provided some first evaluations of the aggregated national plans for energy and climate to 2030. So if remains a big word, if all the policies announced are implemented at European level, we will achieve and overachieve the target for greenhouse gases emissions. And for renewable energy, we're talking about reaching some 33.5% compared to the 32%. What does it mean? That between here and 2050, then the marginal effort, and everybody knows that the marginal effort is harder than the beginning of the exercise, will require some additional thoughts. Now, if I look at Italy, for example, the national plan has estimated 30%, a target of 30% renewable energy to 2030. It's true that already Italy has a specific geography that makes additional investments particularly challenging. That's why the building renovation becomes extremely important, because it can help locate projects in the best way. Repowering remains important, but here the bemol is still to some extent the permitting aspects that need to be speed up and simplified, because otherwise we really risk to lag behind on this.
Minute. How much support the public opinion of your country gives to sustainable policies? I don't hear you. We don't hear you.
Okay. Slovenian public is very sensitive to this question, and I will tell you maybe just one contradiction, that because we have issues installing hydropower plants and wind turbines, which are green energy and renewables, but because this could affect the biodiversity, we have issues and from the public. But the public is very supporting and very sensitive to these issues.
Andrea,
thank you.
One last word. What's the most probable scenario for the future? I know it's difficult to say it in 1 minute.
It all depends on Carlo. I mean, I think I have very much faith in the European Parliament's role, not only in making the budget more ambitious and in making also the governance around it more ambitious. And I'm very happy about what has happened in European Parliament these days, and I think this is an important ingredient in a future recipe that has all eyes on how funds are spent, on how policies are crafted and designed, because this is no time for sort of incremental changes here and there. We need to really change our model of prosperity and sustainability, and this we can only do if we have a strong democratic representation in Brussels and in the member states that really rows all in the same direction. So thanks, Donato.
Very well. I thank you all. I think we have a lot of food for thought, and I hope to meet you in new occasions. And keep watching the Festival of Diplomazia. Thank you.